How important was it for you, Meghan, to wear a damn veil at your wedding, given that you're hardly a traditionalist, love, when it comes to nuptials, given your wedding with Trevor Engelson was full of everyone smoking pot? Harry and Meghan Markle's surrogacy scandal has entered the mainstream media domain.
The king is in a much worse health and much worse shape than he appears to be. All of this has had a devastating effect upon his health.
Fake Duchess was acting in the run-up to her wedding. At that point, the royal rota were completely on side with Harry and Meghan. At that point, there was no sense that they were going to report how the Queen really felt in that moment at Windsor Castle.
All the pictures, my point is, out there were inconsistent with the idea of a real pregnancy.
Nothing to do with the royal family and nothing to do with the Queen. And she loved Harry for many years. You know, he was a second born and he was funny and enjoyable and she really loved him. But when Meghan came, he wasn't allowed to, I imagine, and he didn't want to because everything had to be what Meghan wanted, and everything still has to be what Meghan. We know how she controls Harry, and yet, you know, we're sort of told off, as it were, by an awful lot of people, or they don't want to listen to us or what we write. I get that anyway sometimes.
Deep dive today into exactly how the Queen felt about Meghan Markle. And when I say she hated her, I know some people will think that is a strong word, Brittany, but I just want to explain what I mean.
Did Meghan Markle use a surrogate? That's been something posited literally for well over 3 years when it comes to her firstborn son Archie and even her daughter Lilibet. And many people even wonder, are their children even real?
March 25th, 2026. And the carefully constructed calm that Montecito has been projecting just shattered into 1,000 pieces. This legal move just blew up in the worst possible way, and the fallout is spreading fast. Meghan's legal team did not just slip up on a technicality. They walked with full confidence straight into a storm they have absolutely no ability to control. They skipped past every smaller target available to them and aimed directly at Lady Colin Campbell, a woman who has been sitting on 50 years of elite secrets, insider knowledge, and royal connections that run deeper than most people can imagine. And alongside her, Tom Bower, a journalist with a long-established reputation for taking down powerful names like it is simply part of his daily routine. This is not a minor disagreement between public figures. This is stepping into dangerously deep waters without checking what is swimming underneath. Prince Harry is already buried under an avalanche of non-stop legal drama, simultaneously battling the Home Office over personal security arrangements while aggressively pursuing the British press over what he publicly describes as a serious and deliberate invasion of his privacy. Now, on top of everything already in motion, the weight just got considerably heavier. Lady Colin Campbell did not hesitate for a single second when she fired back with one sharp, loaded line.
Case about whether you think the birth was real, whether you think there was a surrogate, whether you think Meghan was wearing a moon bump. The fact is, Harry and Meghan lied. Buckingham Palace lied on their behalf. There was a complete cover-up over the birth of Prince Arthur.
Let him sue me. And make no mistake, that was not simply a display of confidence or bravado. That was a carefully calculated setup and a public signal to anyone paying attention that she is not only unafraid, but actively prepared for whatever comes next. Sources close to the situation say Harry is genuinely stressed and deeply worn out, grinding through one exhausting court battle after another with no real break, no breathing room, and no clear end in sight. Behind the scenes, it is reportedly said that he told advisors directly, "The courtroom is the only place he feels heard, the only spot where his truth can land." But that belief may be the most dangerous blind spot he currently has, because while a courtroom can amplify a voice, it also holds that voice to a standard that no media interview or carefully produced documentary ever could. The very tool he is reaching for may be the one that does the most damage. And here's the core problem that legal experts keep coming back to, and in public relations and media, you hold the power to shape every single part of the story. You sit down for carefully arranged interviews, you manage the footage, you control what gets released and when, you craft the image and walk away looking exactly how you intended. But the moment you step inside a courtroom, that control is gone completely, handed over to a process that does not care about narratives or public perception.
But by the time of the wedding, by the time that she had figured out that this was a woman who was marrying into the royal family, not for love, Brittany, not for love, but to further her own career. And when she saw, and this I think is the key point for me, when she saw the way that this woman had changed her grandson forever, had destroyed the relationship between brothers, had destroyed the relationship between sister-in-law and brother, that's when she had had enough. So again, I know it's a strong word, Brittany.
And discovery is where everything that was locked away, managed carefully, and kept quiet for years gets dragged fully into the open under legal obligation. Discovery is not a conversation, it is an excavation. Lawyers do not simply argue points back and forth. They dig, and they dig without mercy. Emails you sent years ago, medical records you assumed were permanently private, financial invoices connected to deals that were never meant to be public, private communications exchanged behind closed doors, all of it suddenly lands on a table under oath with no exceptions and no way out. If Harry genuinely pushes this case forward against Lady Colin Campbell and Tom Bower, he would essentially be handing over the master key to rooms he has spent years making sure nobody could enter. The irony is brutal. The legal system he is using as a weapon may end up being the very thing that opens everything up. Tom Bower is not in the business of chasing tabloid gossip or recycling unverified rumors. He operates on receipts, documented evidence, and hard verifiable facts that can withstand serious legal scrutiny, which reports indicate his team went directly to major institutional sources, including the Portland Hospital in London and Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital in California, methodically digging for solid documented proof that either confirms or contradicts the official public narrative. In one reported briefing, Bower pointed out something that many royal observers already understood. Royal births follow strict, well-established procedures involving named and verified doctors, formally signed notices, and clear sequential records that leave no room for ambiguity. And in this particular case, that standard documented process did not fully materialize in the way it historically should have.
And then the late Queen, so determined to build some type of relationship with Meghan Markle, in part because she knew that Meghan Markle was a troublemaker who was probably going to accuse her of racism at some point. And so she asked her about the dress. She asked her about the damn wedding dress. And Meghan withholds that information? What? She thinks the Queen's gonna leak it? Ridiculous. Back to this incredible reporting from Sally Bedell-Smith. When we spoke 2 weeks before the May 19th wedding, Lisa, that is of course Lady Elizabeth Anson, had just heard from the Queen.
The timeline surrounding these events is what has serious observers raising their eyebrows and refusing to look away. On January 14th, 2019, during a public appearance around 10 a.m. in Birkenhead, Meghan's physical appearance presented one way to cameras. And by 11 a.m. that same morning, wearing the exact same outfit in the same setting, it looked noticeably and visibly different in a way that caught immediate attention. Then casting back further to December 2018 at the British Fashion Awards, some viewers began questioning specific footage, suggesting that her posture and positioning looked unusual in a way that went beyond simply resting a hand naturally. Observers familiar with pregnancy pointed out that a genuine baby bump carries a natural, consistent weight and physical presence. And in certain clips circulating widely online, some argued it appeared to behave more like something external rather than biological. You saw that single detail alone began spreading through entirely different circles simultaneously. Not just royal watchers, but medical observers and constitutional commentators.
It's important to go over sort of how Meghan responded to the royal family and how many divisions and conflicts that she was causing, because Meghan has really tried to paint herself as the victim in the scenario, when in fact she has been the villain in this whole royal family saga.
Then came what many serious analysts consider the most significant detail in this entire situation: the precise and deliberate wording used in the official palace announcements. Lady Colin Campbell invested considerable time and very public effort breaking down the exact language chosen when both Archie and Lilibet were formally introduced to the world. The phrase that stopped people cold was "born for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex." In formal English construction and centuries of established royal tradition, children are announced as born to their mother, that phrasing has been consistent and deliberate across every royal birth announcement for generations. And the phrase "born for" carries meaningfully different implications in more complex or non-traditional arrangements, and the distinction is not subtle to anyone trained in constitutional or legal language. Lady Colin Campbell stated plainly in a recent public update that This specific wording may have been carefully chosen to stay technically correct while still following protocol. And that explanation has refused to go away no matter how much time passes. The legal pressure continued stacking relentlessly. Samantha Markle's ongoing case in Florida already provided a very clear preview of exactly how intense these legal situations can become when they reach their full momentum. Legal filings in that case included formal requests that would require clear, detailed, sworn answers under oath, meaning being required in a legal setting to name every single medical professional involved in key events from specific dates. Public interviews will always offer flexibility, room to reframe, and opportunity to redirect. But legal depositions operate under an entirely different and far more demanding standard where every single word is recorded, weighed, and held to strict legal accountability.
All Harry and Meghan need to do is prove to us that she popped those babies out. And that's all they need to do. And if they don't, it is unfair on the children. It's also unfair on the royal family.
False claims or inconsistent statements in that environment do not simply create bad press, they carry serious, potentially criminal legal consequences that cannot be walked back. The birth certificate situation alone would be enough to keep this story alive for years. Just 11 days after Archie Harrison arrived in May 2019, a sudden and unusual amendment was made to his official birth certificate. And the change left legal experts genuinely and publicly confused. The personal name Rachel Meghan was completely stripped from the document and replaced entirely with the formal title, Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex. Lady Colin Campbell highlighted this moment as a major and significant turning point, publicly questioning why any mother's personal given name would be deliberately removed from one of the most permanent and historically significant official records in existence. The Sussex side put forward the explanation that the palace directed this decision. But to this day, not a single piece of official confirmation from the palace has ever appeared to support that claim. The contrast with Catherine, Princess of Wales, is direct and impossible to dismiss. Her full legal personal name appears clearly, completely, and without any alteration on every single birth record for each of her children. No amendments were ever filed, no mystery surrounds any document, no confusion was ever created. That straightforward comparison alone continues to generate discussion every single time this topic surfaces, because the difference in how the records were handled is stark and visible. Then the story moves forward to June 4th, 2021, the announced birth of Lilibet Diana in California, and this is precisely where observers ran straight into what has been described as the California Wall.
They could say, no, we did not use a surrogate and be done with it. Why they don't is suspect, but admitting they did use a surrogate would unravel the lies. Why the need for a moon bump? Why cosplay being pregnant?
Despite the massive international public profile attached to this birth and the enormous global media attention surrounding the Sussex family at that point, the official records in Santa Barbara showed a level of privacy and restricted access that went meaningfully beyond even the generous standards typically extended to high-profile celebrities in that region. Data researchers and documentary watchers identified clear timing gaps between the official public announcement and any corresponding available records, raising more questions than were answered. And once again, that same distinctive phrase, born for, surfaced in discussions and analysis connected to the case. The question that keeps repeating across every platform and in every discussion is consistent and direct. If everything surrounding these births is entirely straightforward and above board, why does the documented trail look this complicated and this incomplete? At the absolute center of everything being debated sits a legal document that is over 300 years old, but carries enormous modern weight, the 1701 Act of Settlement. And the entire discussion comes down to one specific phrase that has become perhaps the most discussed constitutional clause in recent royal history, born of the body. For any individual to hold and maintain their legitimate place in the British line of succession, that foundational requirement must be clearly established, directly verifiable, and fully documented through official records that can withstand legal examination. And Lady Colin Campbell and Tom Bower are not simply sharing personal opinions or speculating from the sidelines. They are directly and formally questioning whether Archie and Lilibet can legally and constitutionally hold their current positions as 6th and 7th in line to the throne. The core argument being raised is serious and precise. If that foundational requirement cannot be clearly and documentably satisfied, the succession status of those children could be formally and legally affected. Reports from multiple sources suggest that constitutional legal experts across the UK are quietly and seriously examining exactly how these centuries-old rules apply to the specific circumstances of 2019 and 2021.
Owes it to the to the public of each and every country of which the king is monarch, to clear up any doubts about anybody in the line of succession. Meghan's conduct is what has triggered all of this. Oh, Archie doing a deep dive between the knees. Archie competing with Tom Daley before he was even given birth to. Archie's unique qualities. And we need to remember that Archie was truly unique because his first word was crocodile. And Archie, of course, was the product of a union that maritally started when they were roasting chicken. And I leave it at that. But what I will go back to say, in terms without giving too much levity to their Harry and Meghan's really crazed behavior.
There is also significant and growing discussion within constitutional circles about whether important past royal documents, including certain letters and formal instruments issued under the late Queen Elizabeth, could face formal scrutiny if key foundational conditions are determined not to have been fully satisfied at the time they were granted. As 2026 continues to unfold, the pressure building around the Sussex brand is intensifying with every passing week. And this is happening at exactly the moment when American Riviera Orchard is attempting to establish itself as a credible and trusted luxury lifestyle brand in an extremely competitive global market. For any premium consumer brand operating at that level, credibility is not just important. It is the entire foundation upon which everything else is built. And persistent. See, in highly publicized, unresolved legal questions do not make that foundation any easier to construct or maintain in the eyes of cautious retail partners and consumers. The calculated silence maintained by senior members of the royal family has not gone unnoticed by anyone paying close attention. And many experienced royal observers interpret this deliberate quiet as a carefully considered wait-and-see strategy, holding position and maintaining neutrality while the full legal and constitutional picture continues to develop and clarify on its own timetable. If Harry continues pushing these multiple overlapping legal cases forward simultaneously, the potential consequences extend well beyond the specific defamation claims he originally filed, and could open legal doors to consequences and disclosures that stretch far beyond anything he initially calculated when this strategy was conceived. As of March 2026, this situation has conclusively and irreversibly moved beyond the category of a family disagreement playing itself out in newspaper columns and social media threads. Critics with serious legal and constitutional backgrounds are now openly describing this as a defining and potentially historic moment for the entire Montecito operation and everything built around it.
Talking about her experiences on podcasts or things like that, or just posting a lot more pictures. It has drawn a lot of attention to the controversies surrounding her kids, her pregnancies, how the children came into the world, the whole thing. Everything she's done has only drawn more speculation and brought the controversies back.
Lady Colin Campbell and Tom Bower are showing absolutely no signs of being rattled, pressured, or backed into retreat. They are steady, thoroughly prepared, and sitting on what they describe as sources, verified records, and documented statements they are entirely confident will hold up under the most rigorous possible courtroom examination. The financial dimension of this entire situation deserves its own serious attention because it cannot be ignored or minimized. After stepping back from official royal duties, Harry and Meghan invested enormous effort in constructing major commercial partnerships with Netflix and Penguin Random House, carefully building a public image centered entirely around their personal version of events and their positioning as honest truth-tellers, willing to reveal what the institution tried to hide. That carefully constructed image carries enormous and very real business value in the current media landscape. But if serious and specific claims were formally challenged and shown to be inconsistent or inaccurate under legal examination, the damage to that foundational image could arrive with devastating speed and leave little room for recovery. This is precisely why the discovery phase has financial analysts, entertainment industry insiders, and legal observers watching every single development with an intensity that keeps growing rather than fading. The launch of American Riviera Orchard added an entirely new dimension to the stakes, and the timing immediately became part of the conversation. Building and successfully selling premium lifestyle products, strawberry jam, carefully curated home goods, artisan items positioned at the luxury end of the consumer market, to a discerning global audience depends entirely and completely on one foundational element: trust. If that trust is openly and publicly questioned during the course of active, high-profile legal proceedings that dominate global media coverage, the entire brand could find itself fighting for basic credibility before it has even fully established its market presence. The unresolved documentary questions from 2019 remain hanging heavily in the background of every brand announcement and every product launch. And critics argue consistently that this shadow follows every commercial move connected to the Sussex name and everything associated with it. Tom Bauer has publicly suggested that Harry is becoming progressively more isolated from realistic outside perspective, leaning with increasing dependence on legal action as his primary and sometimes only response tool. But the situation he currently faces is not arriving from a single manageable direction. It is hitting from multiple simultaneous angles with compounding force, and the pressure is building faster than any single legal strategy can address.
That it just really kind of boggles the mind. I mean, just for titles, for example. So when Archie was first born, they said they didn't want him to have a title. He was going to be a private citizen. I was like, bravo, you understand. He's not going to be a working member of the royal family. He is going to have to live a normal life, get a normal job. That is fantastic. And then it came out later in the Oprah Winfrey interview. Well, they denied him a title and security because he is a mixed race child. And then it was kind of like, and then later she kind of backed.
At the same time, the visible gap between the Sussex household and the rest of the working royal family has grown to the point where it is impossible for even casual observers to miss or dismiss. King Charles, Queen Camilla, and the children of William and Catherine appear regularly and visibly at major national events, present, engaged, clearly connected to the institution and to each other in ways that translate directly into public goodwill and institutional credibility. Archie and Lilibet remain almost completely absent from any comparable public visibility, and the deliberate nature of that contrast continues to generate conversation and speculation across every platform. Palace insiders with knowledge of internal discussions suggest this enforced separation is entirely intentional, a carefully calculated approach designed to maintain maximum caution while larger legal and constitutional questions remain formally open and unresolved at the highest levels. Lady Colin Campbell has made her personal position absolutely clear and without any diplomatic softening. She believes the next phase of this situation will be defined by documented answers rather than carefully constructed narratives. She reportedly told people in her close circle directly, "I have waited 7 years for Harry to be foolish enough to step into a witness box where the truth is the only currency that matters." The weight of that statement and everything it implies about her level of preparation signals more clearly than anything else exactly how serious this specific moment has become for everyone involved. If Harry genuinely continues pushing these defamation cases all the way through the legal system, this stops being a targeted dispute about the content of a specific book or an individual online video. It transforms into something considerably larger and more consequential, with legal implications reaching further and wider than the original filing ever suggested. Defense legal teams are reportedly assembling major and comprehensive discovery requests, specifically targeting hospital-related records and associated documentation from 2019 and 2021. And once those formal requests advance through the system, the entire process becomes extraordinarily difficult to redirect, delay, or control through any available external mechanism. The deposition connected to Samantha Markle's legal case in early 2025 served as an uncomfortably clear preview of exactly what awaits in this next phase. Legal professionals consistently and unanimously describe formal depositions as among the most intense and consequential experiences in any legal proceeding. A structured, under-oath examination environment where every single word is captured permanently, carries direct legal weight, and where any inconsistency between statements creates serious and potentially cascading legal complications that cannot be easily explained away. Sources familiar with internal discussions describe the atmosphere behind closed doors as genuinely and increasingly tense, with growing serious concern about how the next procedural legal steps could develop in ways that public relations management simply cannot reach or mitigate. The phrase "born of the body" has evolved from an obscure constitutional term referenced primarily by legal historians into one of the most searched and most discussed phrases in contemporary royal succession conversation. Legal experts confirm without qualification that it remains absolutely central to the requirements for holding a legitimate place in the British line of succession. and if any specific aspect of that foundational requirement were formally challenged or brought under review during the discovery process, the implications under established UK constitutional law could be significant, lasting, and impossible to quietly set aside. The pattern that observers keep returning to and that refuses to be explained away is direct and consistent. Silence arrives first, followed by legal threats aimed at discouraging further discussion, followed by another period of silence, and then the cycle repeats. With every repetition of this cycle, the silence itself generates more attention, more analysis, and more determined inquiry than any direct statement or public explanation could. The straightforward reality that keeps surfacing in every serious discussion is this: if clear, verified, official documentation exists that directly and definitively answers the questions being raised, presenting that documentation would end this entire conversation almost immediately. The fact that this has not happened after years of escalating public pressure is the detail that serious observers find most impossible to look away from. As Meghan simultaneously works to push American Riviera Orchard toward a sustainable and credible global market position, the challenge of constructing a premium lifestyle brand while active and high-profile legal scrutiny continues dominating the public conversation presents an almost impossible balancing act in real time. Trust is not simply a component of the brand, trust effectively is the product, and trust is precisely what is being actively contested in legal proceedings that every potential retail partner, distributor, and major endorsement brand is watching with careful attention before making any significant commitment. Yarns reports describe Harry as dealing with genuine and mounting personal pressure, managing multiple simultaneous legal battles while attempting to keep everything under control behind the walls of a $14 million property, facing a situation that keeps expanding beyond the boundaries of any single containment strategy. Many experienced legal and public affairs observers note that there are clear and available ways to address the core outstanding questions directly and definitively once, but that path has not been taken. And that consistent pattern of avoidance is precisely what keeps this conversation alive, growing, and reaching new audiences with every development. Now, the entire situation comes down to one fundamental decision that cannot be deferred indefinitely. Does Harry push forward through a legal process that will examine everything in documented, sworn, legally verified detail? Or does he find a viable way to step back before the process reaches the point of no return? That single choice will determine everything that follows. And right now, with legal teams positioned on both sides and constitutional mechanisms quietly moving forward, every move is being watched with a level of attention that this story has never before generated.